Welcome back to the Limitless Brave Show. The gentleman I have today with me has created a short film about his grandmother who escaped the death marches while in Auschwitz. It won a Sundance Award, and you got your first big agent, CAA.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
And you've written movies for Warner Brothers, Fox, and others. You wrote Gnomes on Netflix, which is the third most watched movie in 2021. This is definitely not to be left out. A proud father.
That's right.
And you're currently writing an historical drama set in the 16th century.
That's correct. Yeah. To be shot in the next 6-7 months from now. Yeah.
Micah, welcome.
Thank you.
So you have done a lot of interesting stuff, man,
I have.
which is why you're here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we were talking before this. You grew up in Seattle,
Yes. Seattle, Washington.
Washington. Okay.
On a little island called Mercer Island.
Oh,
Yeah.
really? Okay. I
Yeah.
know Mercer Island.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So what was life like? What was going on as a young
mean,
Micah?
I mean, being a little kid in Seattle was amazing. You know, I grew up before, Microsoft was what it became. It was there. Amazon before all of that. So I grew up during that transformation, during grunge and all of that in that area. So I kind of really got to see an emergence of an entire city just transform. And I grew up on a little island in the middle of Lake Washington. It was like paradise, super safe. You didn't lock your doors. Just an incredible childhood. I mean, if I was to pick a place to raise my kids, I mean, that would be high on the list. It was fantastic. Seattle is gorgeous in the summers, rainy in the winter, but it's a great place to grow up. Yeah.
Cool. So what were you doing as a little boy?
Just on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Played a lot of sports. I mean, played a very serious baseball player from the time I was 8 years old. I was probably, I didn't have summers. I played baseball all summer long. So I was playing, 120 games a year.
Really?
Yeah, it was almost double headers or probably 7 days a week. I would play 8 games, and yeah, so it's very, very serious from a very young age. So I played a lot of baseball. My dad had somehow finagled getting the keys to the local high school field so he could turn on the lights and we would just go take batting practice. So it was right by where I grew up in my house. So yeah, a lot of baseball, a lot of sports. That was what I did when I was little. That was my big thing.
Okay.
Yeah. Nice. Some video games, old school Nintendo, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. That's
Yeah.
awesome. So you were doing that from like which age to which age?
I would say from 7 years old all the way through high school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
What was high school like?
High school was awesome. I mean, I played a lot of sports. Again, I played baseball, basketball. I went, I was a freshman playing on the varsity team in baseball. And so that was an interesting experience. High school was a little, Dazed and Confused, the movie.
Yep.
So like
One of my favorites.
Our school had a incredibly wild hazing tradition.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah. And so if you were like, a good athlete and you were taking some varsity guys, the seniors position on a baseball team, for example, you got hazed. And so I spent a lot of my days running away from being canned, which was being stuffed in a garbage can. Yeah, and would chew spit, and they would slide you under the table. It was bad news. So a lot of my high school, my freshman year especially, I mean, that was your freshman year, was trying to escape from the seniors. Stuff that just wouldn't happen now. And then I joined I became like one of the editors of the newspaper. I had the school newspaper, had my own column.
Okay.
Did stuff like that. I really enjoyed writing and other creative pursuits to balance out my my more athletic,
Yeah, that's really
upbringing.
interesting that you were trying to balance that out and were kind of consciously aware of that, because a lot of people are like, oh, I have to pick a lane and stay in it.
Right. Well, I feel like, naturally I think that when we kind of want to fit in and we kind of do what we think is the thing, we want to fit in. So team sports makes sense, right? But then I think intuitively as you get older, you're just kind of looking around for other things, and as a kid, I was a big storyteller, like I just like to tell stories. Even, as a little kid, Little Lies, and that became like stories. And then those stories became other forms of, creative storytelling. And so, yeah, so I like that with the writing. And then when I hurt my arm, I ended up, working in the TV production department. So, yeah.
Okay. And so you got hurt playing sports, right?
I did. So, yeah. So not to jump the gun on that, but one year I was pitching for my traveling team, and I had a no-hitter going, and the coach kept me in the game, but my arm was really tired, and I finished the game. I ended up giving up one hit, but I threw out my arm. And for like literally 7-8 months, I could barely lift it. And while I was rehabilitating my arm, like when you're a baseball player, your arm is everything. So I didn't know what to kind of do with myself. And I joined the TV production department and started making films. At that time, so where I grew up was near where Bill Gates and Paul Allen lived.
Okay.
And they had donated a computer, what at the time was called an Avid. Avid is nonlinear editing. Today we use Final Cut Pro and all these things, but back then, that was a revolutionary thing. You use tape decks. Well, anyway, they had this computer that they donated with Avid. It's like a $40,000 machine back then. And now we would look at it and laugh, but back then it was completely revolutionary, the idea that you could edit something in a timeline non-linearly. And so the teacher didn't know how to use it. So it was just sitting there, and so me and a couple other guys taught ourselves to use it. It was incredible, and I never looked back. That was like just my passion.
What year was this?
This would have been, I'd say, like 1998, 99.
Yeah.
Like 99, I think. Yeah.
That is pretty revolutionary from that time.
Yeah.
Especially in the editing.
Nonlinear editing, people really didn't do it. Even when I went to film school, I ended up going to film school at NYU. I mean, they were just like, they had 3 Avid units in the entire Tisch program, which is insane to think that like one of the top 2 film schools, that in USC in the country at that point in time. I had already been doing it in high school, and now I'm just like, wait, what? I'm paying all this money a year and you guys don't even have the technology here. So they had like 3 Avids, but now, with Final Cut Pro, I mean, you and I can go back to our home and just do the same thing, but that didn't exist really until about 2001. 2002 is when Final Cut Pro.
Yeah, yeah.
And funny enough, that short film Empty that you had mentioned, Apple, so back then Apple did this thing where they would feature, this was actually a cool story. They would feature like, creative projects that were done on their content. They still do that today. Like they'll like shut on the iPhone, you see the big billboards.
Yeah.
Well, the movie that I ended up doing, that short film about my grandmother, Apple got wind of it and they did a cover story on it. Cool. Back then, Apple was like, you go to the Apple page and, it's not like today where there's like 1,000 things. It was like, here's Apple. Well, my movie was like literally like on like the front page. And back then, getting 50, probably 50,000, emails or whatever the hell happened there was like, it's not like Instagram now. It was really cool. People from all over the world. And so anyway, I did the whole story with them about Final Cut Pro and all that stuff. But that's editing. And so anyway, from high school to however we got to the editing thing. But I love to edit. Editing is telling stories with pictures. It's just like writing, really.
That's really interesting you say that. I don't like editing, but I do it.
It's probably cumbersome depending on what it is you're cutting or why.
Yeah.
I mean, to me as a filmmaker, editing is like you finally have all the clay.
Yep.
you know, when you're writing, everything gets changed anyway. Actors, people, DP, you know, everybody's working on something and they're adding their components to something and their own flavor. But when you finally, like, when you get in the editing room is really when, like, what did we miss? What did we do? What did we solve? How did we solve it? It's just like, it's like writing all over again, but it's like the final, like, concrete way of making something as a film. So I love it.
That's cool, and I can get behind what you're saying, definitely.
Yeah, it's just different experience. But
Yeah.
when you spend, you know, 8 months writing something and then it's shot completely differently, you know, it's just like, well, finally at this, they can't change.
Yeah,
This
right.
is what we have. So now I can actually, like, get into the business of making it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So you finish up high school.
Mm-hmm.
Did you go straight to NYU?
So I did.
You
Yes.
In NYU Tisch, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, right away. I basically, excuse me, that's not true actually. My freshman year, I ended up going to Boston University. I went to BU my freshman year. I had a scholarship there, and my dad was like, "Hey man, don't, you know, that's a lot of money at NYU. Take this." So I went to BU, and then transferred to NYU my sophomore year.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think my aunt went to Boston as well.
Yeah.
I know she graduated from Harvard, but
Yeah, I mean, Harvard and BU are two very different schools, but yeah, BU was great, but I just wasn't impressed with their film program at all, and I just said that this wasn't for me.
yeah. And so I went down to the
Exactly.
city. Nice.
Yeah.
Smart move.
Yeah, yeah.
That's where it happens for
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, college, you know, going to NYU for film wasn't really like going to college. It was like you're just competing with, you know, everyone else that really wants it. It was a competition, really.
Totally. Yeah. At that level.
Yeah.
At that school. For
Yeah,
the
you
program.
want it. You just gotta want it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like Juilliard or
Yeah.
ABT for the dancer
Yep.
or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah. You got to be on
You
it
gotta
all
really
the time.
want it. Yeah, it was intense.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
Cool. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
So
What was time like in the city? You were there. What years were you there?
I was I was there from 1998 to 2004, I want to say.
Okay.
But I was back and forth between LA and New York, really from 9/11 back and forth.
Yep.
When I finished at NYU, I taught there as an adjunct professor.
Okay.
I actually did post-production.
Okay.
So they, you know, after I had a successful movie there, and everything was kind of like moving, and I was in the midst of, this was when I was getting, you know, signing with the agent and all that stuff was happening. I just spent, you know, a semester teaching in post. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Getting signed with CAA.
Yeah, it was
that's
cool.
a big deal.
Yeah, it was cool. I mean, it was like, you know, I was the age of all the assistants and, like, you know, that were working the desk, and that was kind of like a cool thing, you know.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's wild stories, you know. My film was about it was a World War II film about my grandmother, who was a Holocaust survivor and when she was 14, escaped from Auschwitz during a death march at the end of the war. And what happened was, and the movie's inspired, it's not specific to her story in this way, but it's inspired by her story, which was that she had come across a Wehrmacht soldier in a barn. So the Wehrmacht soldiers were German, just infantry. They weren't the guys that were working the concentration camps.
Yeah.
But at that point in the war, everybody was running away. You know, the Jews were running, the Germans were running from the Russians, the Americans were hunting. You know, it's like everything was a mess. And so anyway, she came across this German in a barn. This guy was hiding, and he basically gave her a potato, told her to stay quiet, and they just kept on their march. And then later on, when she was in basically a reparations camp after, she saw that he had been caught and watched him get killed right in front of her. Yeah. So it was this story, kind of like the brutality of war,
Yeah.
and the perseverance.
Yeah.
But it was inspired by that, and so the movie follows two Germans and two kids that are escaping from a death march, and they all end up in this barn together. It was a beautiful film. I was really while we got stuck in a snowstorm. We shot in Von Trapp Estate up in Vermont with a lot of birch trees. It was cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah,
So you shot a lot of it here in the U.S.
Yeah, we did. I shot, actually, I spent a lot of time shooting in the Czech Republic, in Barrendorf Studios, and then in Moravia and Bohemia, just different projects out there. And they actually have a film school out there called FAMU, which is great.
Okay.
But in any case, I was out there shooting and ended up being really inspired by some of the cinema out there and all these, it's a very dark and heavy place, that part of the world. They've gone through a lot of hardship. So, Tarkovsky and some of these filmmakers that really capitalized on that with their movies in terms of what they were exploring. And I was kind of inspired by that at the time. And so, yeah, the Von Trapp estate, the Von Trapp family, they're from, I believe it's The Sound of Music. It's inspired by them. And so when they came from Austria, they bought this enormous piece of land that was all birch trees up in Vermont, which was like, ironically, so it was like having Eastern Europe in America.
Yeah.
So we shot there. That's where we shot. And the movie was beautiful. And, my grandmother got to see it. And it was really special. Really special.
That's amazing. I do want to get into talking about your grandmother.
Yeah.
But I just want to comment on the heaviness of Eastern Europe. I know exactly what you're talking about. My wife's Romanian. I've spent a lot of time all through Eastern Europe.
Yeah.
There is an internet
everywhere. It's just there. I mean, there's the old lady who's looking out her window. She's 85 years old and she just stares at you. There's gypsies on the street, or however they refer to them. They got their hands out. It's just like, you're like, wow, this is, there's an intensity in old world, pain.
Yeah.
You can see it in the literature, in the movies. It's just something very old, and it's just,
super, super heavy, very depressing.
Yeah, it can be.
My wife was reading me this poem of one of the Romanian poets the other night, and it was the main part of it was like, I'm so broken and useless. My heart is so cold and like dead. Not even death wants me.
Oh,
like
man.
That kind of stuff.
Yeah, brutal. Just brutal.
Like, oh my God.
Yeah. And they live in it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's part of like the identity, Mm-hmm. I mean, they're proud of it. It's part of the soul. I mean, and I mean, you can't help but be affected by that, I think some of the most beautiful cinema comes from that part of the world because of that.
I think so too. I would agree with you on that. It is definitely, there's a beauty in that darkness for sure.
So just to finish up with your initial, I think where you were going with, so I came out with that film to LA, and I was suddenly like this, 23-year-old kid who, Arnold Schwarzenegger, before he was mayor at the time, wanted me to direct him in a World War II movie. I actually passed on it because I thought it would be ridiculous. It was called Giants, and it was about Arnold Schwarzenegger was going to play a Wehrmacht soldier who had been injured, and he was basically relocated to what he realized was like this camp full of kids that were going to be killed. And he decides to lead the kids over the mountains to, safety. And I thought this was just like the hokiest. I just like couldn't picture this. Yeah, I was like, seriously? This? Like, no way,
Dave here with the Limitless Brave Show. And gentlemen, this one's for you. Are you struggling with your dating life, or maybe your relationships? Possibly the marriage is on the rocks. Maybe you're having a difficult time making money. What about your health? Is that good, or is it in poor repair? And maybe you've tried everything you know how to do to climb that corporate ladder, but you're still not getting anywhere. Or if you're finished with the corporate world, you've been hesitant on starting that new business. Or maybe you just do not feel confident taking on one of the most unique roles we have as men, and that is being the protector. Guys, for the past 15 years as my full-time career, I've been coaching men all over the world on those topics and how to rise above everything that's holding them back to get that amazing dream life. I've been helping men understand the art of living masculine for a very long time, and I would love to help you. I have a very simple, nurturing, zero to hero philosophy when it comes to working with me. It's not anything difficult. It's not anything hard. It's not abusive. It's just common knowledge that I love to share with men to get their minds switched on in the right direction so that they can go out and live an amazing life that every man should. If you want to know more about this, check me out at limitlessbrave.com, get signed up to my email list, and we'll be in touch.
Yeah, I probably should have taken the movie, to be honest, in hindsight. But at the time, I was just like, I just couldn't get into it,
Yeah, yeah.
It's tough, I like to write my own stuff, or it has to be from something that feels really true and honest, and that didn't feel honest to me.
Okay, yeah. That sounds a little cheesy.
Yeah, it never got made, so
Okay.
I think I made the right decision.
Yeah, you definitely made a good call on that one. So can we talk about your grandmother?
Yeah.
That's really cool that you were able to have her here
Yeah.
to share all of this with you. I have not seen the film. I want to watch it.
Yeah.
What are some of the stories and things that stick out to you that she went through that she experienced?
Well, the first thing I'll just say about grandparents in general, I think this is an important thing to say. A lot of people, as we're having kids, as we get older, we don't have these relationships anymore like maybe we used to have with grandparents. People are having their parents old, their children older, so by the time they have their kids, it's like, what can that relationship be?
Yeah.
And I'm really, really grateful. I think about that all the time with my daughter, and it was so special, the relationship I had with my grandfather and my grandmother, and my mom's mother. My other grandfather had passed away before I was born. But what I'll say about this is that, your grandparents, just generally have a different kind of relationship than you would have with your parents. And that's specifically true about parents or grandparents that were Holocaust survivors. So my father's relationship with his parents was very different than mine with them as grandparents, because, as a parent, you don't really want to burden your children with the past. My grandmother came to the United States. People used to ask her why she had her phone number written on her wrist. They gave them tattoos.
Yeah, I know.
But this is where it was in the 50s and 60s. So what happened is that people would basically bury, it wasn't something that people talked about. It was like a painful part of your past.
Yeah.
And I think my grandmother, that she suppressed a lot of that with her parents or with her kids. So my relationship with her was like kind of an opening. It was like she could start to talk about this. And so we really had a very special bond that way.
Yeah, that's cool.
I don't think my father, or my aunt ever had with her. And they would be like listening to stuff that she was telling me and be like, they couldn't even believe it, And so it was really special to have that kind of relationship. And, I think the thing that we shared was, we were talking about Eastern Europe, but, she's from Transylvania, a little town called Satu Mare. And
Really?
yeah.
Your grandmother's Romanian?
Yeah, Transylvania, yeah, Romanian, yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I'll have to tell my wife.
Yeah. She was in, that's where she's from.
Yeah, I've been there.
And she speaks it, and
Cool.
Yeah, and I have a lot of cabbage and noodles and other dishes that were like stuffed
Lots of chorba.
cabbage.
Lots of chorba.
Yeah. So, she would talk to me a lot about, her experiences, which is when I made that movie that was kind of inspired by, but also just little details of her time. And she used to talk about the butterflies on the barbed wire fences in her camp, or she didn't really talk about her parents much because she lost them in the camp,
Okay.
Most of her family was wiped out, and she ended up coming to New York. Her parents had been divorced, interestingly, and her father had been married and basically had 2 new daughters. So she was kind of like Cinderella coming to the United States.
Wow.
Yeah, after she was like no family left and came to live with them.
Wow.
Yeah. So
That image that you just said about the butterfly and
yeah.
the barbed wire.
Oh yeah. She would talk.
Like, I can't even.
She would look like, she would look off kind of like, Rose in the Titanic, and be like, thinking of Jack. She would be thinking of, this image of, of this these butterflies, on the fence. I mean, that was the image she had of her safety once she was in these camps. But then she would also just talk about some of the most horrible things. She told me some crazy stuff about the Russians, which she actually was more afraid of than the Germans.
Really?
Yeah, because the Russians came in and were raping the women, and there was like they were just her thing was like they were backcountry. She was like they were savage. These weren't like people that were like from cities or anything.
Yeah,
She
weren't
said these were
educated.
like weren't educated. Like she gave me this example that blew my mind. I couldn't even believe it. I still think about these two things. She said they used to walk around town with watches on their ankles. And I said, why would these soldiers do that? She said, because they would see the people hiding their watches and their valuables on their ankles so they wouldn't get stolen, and thought that's where you were supposed to wear them. So it would take people's watches and wear them around their ankles. And she said they used to drink all the perfume and the cologne out of the right out of people's like perfumeries and stuff. She just said they were terrifying. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty wild stuff.
That's
But we had an incredible relationship. And, one of the other things I'm really proud of, my father passed away in 2015. He had cancer. Very shocking, quick passing. It was very sad. My grandmother was very close to my father, and my grandfather as well. And when they passed, they became very depressed, and I kind of just took care of them from that point on. And sadly, there was a situation where their caretaker basically stole all this money from them, and they didn't even know it was happening. And I caught the person, and then it became a whole story. And if you ever don't want to be looked upon as a terrible person, don't steal people. Like my grandmother was getting Holocaust reparations checks. This woman was stealing the money from the reparations checks.
God.
Can you imagine? So it became like a national story, and it was all over the news. I mean, New York Times to the Miami. I mean, in Florida, that this stuff doesn't go up. She was mugshot on the news. It was like a whole situation. So, but yeah, we ended up. It was tough to get someone to take the case, but once we had a prosecutor on there from the state, they went after this woman, and that was really tough though for my grandmother, because I think she was so depressed. But I was trying to get back. They stole it for $300,000 from them, so it was really bad. But yeah, so I basically stepped in around that time when I realized that was happening, and got that thing going, and then took care of them. And I was just things I'm really proud of are just to be able to be there for them like that.
Yeah,
Super
absolutely.
close.
To stand up and get
My dad wasn't around anymore. Yeah.
to get that woman prosecuted.
I think that I think we can all feel this as, we all feel this, I think, in life, hardships, the pains we go through, how we persevere. My grandma was a Holocaust survivor. She persevered a lot.
Yeah.
But I think that when my father passed away, like that kind of took her down. When you have a child who you don't think you're ever going to make it to live yourself, and then you have a child and you bring out to the world, that's kind of like a cathartic concept. Not like you and me having babies, but like you never think you're even going to breathe. So to bring more life into the world when what you lost everyone is pretty profound. So when she lost my dad, I think that really it was too much for her.
There's nothing left.
Nothing left or live for, really. Yeah. But she lived, but I mean, we had it wasn't, I think she lived for myself and my sister and her husband, my grandfather, but she lost a huge piece of her.
Have you ever read Viktor Frankl's
Man's Search for Meaning?
Yeah.
In fact, that book, logotherapy, the whole concept, he who has a why to live can bear almost anyhow. Nietzsche quote that he kind of bases. I am very familiar with that book, and I read it quite a bit when I was going to make my that specific short film, Empty, that we've been talking about. Yes, I know it very well. Beautiful story. At BU, one of the cool things I did have is that Elie Wiesel, who wrote Night, and is kind of like one of the foremost authors of this kind of, you know, autobiographical fiction. I had a class with him, and I mean, he's the closest thing you can get to Viktor Frankl.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, amazing stuff. But I really believe what he says in that book, which is essentially you find the abstract purposes in your life, things like love, things that someone can't take away from you in life. Those can drive you to survive anything and persevere anything. I think that's really true. Those are the things in life that really do give us meaning.
I would agree. I've been in some situations myself where it's like on the edge of like, am I going to live or not?
Yeah.
And that kind of stuff flashes through my mind.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, okay, this is what's really real.
Right.
So,
I mean, it's hard to put yourself into that perspective, like as an exercise.
Yeah.
You know,
It's
like in a daily basis. But when you really strip it down, and you really think about, like, it is a good exercise. Really, I should do it more. But to really think about what really does matter and what really the intangible things that do drive you in life. I mean, we just kind of go on our autopilots through the day to function.
that we do.
But, you know, the true worth and the true power of life comes from those kinds of thoughts. But yeah, I mean, in that book, if you recall, there's this one of the most glaring examples that he gives of the power of finding meaning in your life is there was a day, I believe, around Christmas, or it was around Hanukkah in the concentration camps, because the book is basically about a young boy who is separated from his mother and father in a concentration camp. And it's his story of basically how he survived in a camp. And he describes a day where everybody thought they were going to be saved. Like 2 months before this, everybody was thinking by Christmas or whatever the holiday was, it was Christmas or Hanukkah, they were going to be rescued. Well, that day came and nobody was rescued. Within the next 3 days, I think it was like half the camp died, or there was like enormous amount of people just died.
Yeah.
And they had it in their mind that they were gonna be saved by this day, and when it didn't, they just died. And the power of the mind.
Yep.
The power of the mind. And so he went ahead, and his thought was, as he was thinking about the love of, I think it was his father or his mother, and that kept him going.
Yep. Yes.
Something separate, but yeah, so.
Yeah, not being so much involved in current circumstances, but, you know, really
Yeah.
living and thinking of something.
Yeah, yeah. And when you know, whatever you're doing professionally, whether you're writing a movie, you're directing a movie, you're running a business, I mean, you know, to really persevere in those tough times, you've got to have a greater purpose, right?
Yep.
Can't just be money. I mean, it can, but
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like, you know, the authenticity of anything that's worth it, you got to have a little bit more going on.
Yep. I would agree with that 100%. Totally.
People smell it. I mean, in my business, you know, I also do commercials. I do other kinds of things. You know, authenticity is like the key word.
Yep.
You can't be authentic if you don't really have something that you're resonating to, I think.
Yeah, like I see that a lot in the art world.
Yeah.
You know, it's something that I'm like, yep, like this feels, I can see the money making artists versus the artists
Yeah.
who are producing art.
And you can smell it.
Yeah, totally.
And I mean, you know, it's just like when someone's trying to sell you something. The minute you know someone's trying to sell you something, you know, that's why every advertiser does all these campaigns that are like through influencers or other people that are supposed to be authentic, but it's still not authentic. But we, you know, but it's like everyone's trying to figure out how do we make it not selling to somebody, but sell, you know? An artist, it's a great example. You can see it in the work. You're like, yeah, this isn't from the soul. This is like derivative of something that they just think that people want.
Yep.
Hey, Dave here with the Limitless Brave Show. I hope you've been enjoying the show as much as I have been enjoying making it for you. And I want to introduce our next guest. And this guest is doing some amazing stuff in the world. Please welcome Woobies. Now, I've recently partnered with this company because of their incredible mission. Their mission is to put a pair of whoobies on every homeless vet's feet. That's a huge mission, and it's one I can get behind. So guys, if you go and purchase a pair of whoobies, a homeless vet's gonna get a pair of shoes for free. And we need to help out our vets because they put their life on the line so that we can live in this incredible country. And so I was very curious about this company. I flew down to Dallas, Texas, where their headquarters is. I spent the day with the CEO, and let me tell you, these guys are on point. And not only that, it's a veteran-owned company. So it's veterans helping veterans. What an awesome mission. So these are the Mod 2s, and this is the high-top version. They also make a low-top version. These shoes can be worn on land and in the water. This is the official shoe of Naval Special Operations Dive School. Guys, if Special Operations is using this shoe, you can too. And so I took my whoobies to New York City recently, to Washington, D.C., and around Los Angeles. And let me tell you, they were comfortable right out of the box and something that I enjoyed wearing. They have a true paracord shoelace and a certified non-slip sole. So if you need a certified non-slip sole for your work, these are the shoes. And this is a canvas upper, and it breathes and dries really quick. So if you're in and out of the water, like I am when I'm diving, these things are awesome. They have a lot of different colorways for you to check out. So please go support their mission at whoobies.com.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I've seen it in the more modern art world, like current day. I see a lot of that stuff. I don't see a lot of current artists like really producing for the love of it. It's just a lot of like commercial stuff.
Yeah, I also think a lot of that has to do with the technology that people are using. And I'm not suggesting artificial intelligence, AI, or any of that. I just mean like, if you look at the skill, anyone can shoot now with a camera. I mean, the technology is incredible. The algorithms are incredible for coloring, grading, anything. It's like you really, there's not much, you don't have to do much for that first 60%, to get to that level.
Yep.
Where true art comes is like, what do you do with the rest of it? But then you have Photoshop and all these things and these tools, there's only, the Photoshop has really become the, for photography, or if you're talking about that, but all the tools that you use are the same tools everyone else is using. It's like, so a lot of stuff becomes formulaic. It's hard to you really have to be innovative to really separate yourself.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That's a good point.
The real artists are the guys that are making the tools that we use to do this stuff.
Right.
I mean, you watch how it transforms. Like when we're talking about nonlinear editing, MTV was created by nonlinear editing. Suddenly everything was super fast in the editing room. They could cut much quicker and do all this stuff that transformed the way that now we're so used to seeing things much quicker. Now if you watch, anything you watch is like, if you watch a movie from the 80s or 90s, you're like, why is this so slow? Well, the technology transformed the way that we could edit faster, do more, and so our attention spans get shorter. It's just like the domino effect of how technology influences the things that we create.
Yeah, all the way down to social media clips where it's just like
100%.
cut.
Yeah.
1 minute.
100%.
Whoa.
I know. Now, I mean, when I used to deliver commercials, it was like, did you want a 30-second, 45-second, or a minute? Now it's like, we want the 10, 12, and then 18-second, and the 5. You're like, wow, okay.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. I still want to kind of stay on this path with your grandmother. I like going off because it gets heavy and then coming back.
Yeah, roll the wave, ride the wave.
So did she talk much about her time in the camp? Or did she never really make it into, or she was in Auschwitz, right?
She was in Auschwitz. That was the other camp she was in. She was in Auschwitz. She went in there when she was 12, and she left when she was 15, and then she was in the why is the name, the dislocation, the relocation camps. The relocation camps for, I think, 2 years, which, by the way, is something, we don't really ever hear about, but that's a pretty crazy time. Imagine like all of Europe is, you have nowhere to go. Your home's been taken over by somebody else.
Yeah.
and you're just stuck in this place, you know. I mean, we see it today. I mean, there's, you know, we're seeing people relocated and all this kind of stuff. But yeah, pretty crazy time in Europe. So yeah, she was in the camp for 3 years. She talks about it. She talked to me about it. Not specifically about a lot of the details, but you know, she told me that she made friends with some of the female guards. And the female guards like would give her.
I didn't know there were female guards.
Yeah, apparently there was some female guards, and they would give. She was like very pretty. My grandmother, she's beautiful, and I think that, you know, she was able to just sort of, you know, they would help her a little bit and give her a little extra bread. I don't think she was ever tested, you know, like they weren't testing on her like some of the other children there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so she talked a little bit about it, but, you know, not much. She talked about the escape. But, you know, honestly, like if you think about traumatic things that you go through, you know, a lot of times those things are super blurred in terms of what your experience is.
Compartmentalized and put away.
Yeah, you know, but she didn't talk too much about that, which I think she probably was experiencing some pretty terrible things, as I'm sure. You know,
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So, but she did talk. She told me the whole story about when she, you know, after she was in the relocation camp, and then, you know, traveling back through like jeeps and ferries and stuff to get back to her hometown. She had buried a bunch of clothing and things and possessions that belonged to her family in the ground, right in some special area right by her house. And so she went back and got that.
Oh,
yeah. And she brought that to the States, and those heirlooms still exist, like old tapestries from like the 18th century.
Oh, that's so smart.
That. Yeah. So pretty interesting. Yeah. But it's a pretty wild trip, like getting a visa. You know, at that point in time, to get to the United States, you needed it wasn't easy to get to the States, and they wouldn't let you in. You know, there was it was complicated, but since her father was there, she was able to get in there. But people are trying to get fake visas and all kinds of stuff at that point.
Yep.
Pretty crazy.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So Auschwitz to relocation camp, and from relocation, that is where she escaped?
No, so the death marches happened. They were basically the last gasp of the SS and the basically the Nazis at the end of the war. So the relocations camp happened after that. So like what happened was that the death marches were essentially the Germans are retreating towards Germany. They're like everyone's going back towards the motherland because they're losing. So the idea is that they didn't want to like leave these, you know, signs of what they had done. So they just marched them, you know, as they were retreating back to Germany, and just basically letting them die as they went. You know, it wasn't like they were looking to like, you know, maybe they're thinking they could barter with some of them, barter prisoners, but really it was just like, that's why they call them death marches. They were just basically wiping out what was left as they moved and retreated back toward Germany.
Yeah.
And then during that, they were, you know, they came across either Russians or the Americans, and that was essentially, they would get caught and then they were rescued. So it wasn't like they ever, you know, my grandma was just rescued by, you know, one day they woke up and there were Americans coming into the camp of who else was left, that they've been walking for, you know, days in the middle of winter. Yeah.
Brutal.
Yeah, I don't think we really can comprehend it.
No. I try to think about some of that stuff sometimes. I'm like, you know, where would I have ended, right?
Yeah.
It's like where
I know.
And you don't know until you're in that situation.
It's an interesting thought.
But it's like, where in the world would
I don't think I would have lasted that long. I think
Probably not.
I'll tell you who lived with the children, because when you're young, you don't know anything else but to live. But as you get older, and we go through things, and it's a good lesson in life. You know, we know what people are capable of. We know the mistakes that were made or the cruelty. And we kind of have had, more time to kind of process these things in our minds wither us,
Yeah.
And I don't think children have that. Children are innocent. Children just, all they want to do is survive or be. And so I think the less you can, have to think about those things, the more you have a chance to survive. So I think a lot of the people that survive were very young, not just because of health, but because of strength of mind.
Yeah, absolutely. And they don't have other like ideas to kind of like compound the negativity that's already going on in that moment.
That's right. I think that's a big part of life. Like, I find myself doing that. Like, I'm very hard on myself. And, my wife, Caroline, always tells me, don't be so hard on yourself. And she's right, because, the way you speak to yourself, it becomes reality.
Totally true. Totally true. Yeah, I get the same reprimand from my wife.
Yeah.
But she does the same to herself, and so I reprimand her.
Yeah.
It's really important to keep each other in check, because that stuff is very true, and it'll direct you in a place you don't want to go.
Yeah. You gotta be nice to yourself when you can. I'm very critical. I mean, just my line of work is very critical. I'm always criticizing what can be better. I don't even think about what's good. I just constantly am thinking about what can be improved. Like, oh, I really liked it. Great. What's wrong with it? That's kind of like the joke. But it's really true, and it's probably something I should take more time to celebrate the wins.
It's important.
Yeah.
It's super important.
Yeah.
Very, very important. Very cool. And so remind me of the name of the film again.
So this specific short film, there's been a lot of different projects, but this one that we've been talking about today is called Empty.
Empty. Okay. Yeah. And that was a Sundance Award winner.
So the movie played at Sundance, but it won an award at Sundance. I think it was called the Buzz Cuts Award or something. But it also won a Student Emmy. It played at Cannes. Okay. It played at, 50 different film festivals, won, I don't know how many awards, plenty. I think over 35 different awards. It was a lot. But, here nor there, it had a really special run of, it was very meaningful to see it. Like, and sometimes you go to like these film festivals, people are kind of tuned out, but that movie really, like, it spoke to people. I think because if it was an honest movie, you could tell that it wasn't just somebody came up with a story. It was kind of like, oh,
it's like, oh,
this is, there's something to this.
There's reality.
Yeah. And I think just like we're talking about today, people were very interested to know what that was about. And it was cool because the movie is in German, Russian, and Polish. It's not in English.
Oh, wow.
It was very authentic that way. It was a choice because there's not a lot of dialogue, and I thought the authenticity in the film, it would, make it feel much more real if they're just speaking their language. So, I had, two fantastic German-speaking, actors play the two soldiers, and two Polish kids playing the Polish kids, and a Russian. It was cool. It was, and my editor was, one of the funniest and coolest ways. Like, when we were casting that, I didn't even want them to do the lines in English. I had them just say it in German, and I was like, because the audience was for an American audience, so if they could move me emotionally without really even knowing what they were saying, like, because I don't speak German, I knew it was working. So that really was a really interesting casting choice. And then I had a great editor who was a Swiss guy who spoke German, and it was awesome. A great experience.
Yeah, that's a really smart move. Have you ever seen there's a TV series done in Germany? It's called Deutschland 83.
I've heard of it. I haven't seen it though.
All in German.
Yeah.
Wife and I, we could not stop watching.
Yeah.
It was incredible.
It's kind of like one of the coolest cheats you can ever do in filmmaking. Like, one of them is always black and white, because everything looks better in black and white.
Yeah, totally.
You can get away with a lot. And, sometimes I'll watch a movie, I'll be like, yeah, I know why they shot that in black and white, but it's a good way, it's a good look. But language is another. Language really, like, you'll be like watching a movie in another language, like, God, the acting is so good, you know. Meanwhile, your friend who actually speaks the language would be like, it was okay. But like, you know, think of it, you know, generally when you can't understand what people are saying, you're so in tune emotionally
Yes.
that if they're present emotionally, it really works. It feels very authentic.
Absolutely. And it's funny you say that because I work with men, as you know, and a lot of guys love to travel the world and meet foreign women.
Uh-huh.
But their big hang up for themselves is, I don't speak the language. I'm like, you don't need to.
Yeah.
You need to be present and focused on the emotion. You'll be able to understand what's going on.
100%.
And that's just something I've done naturally for myself.
Yeah.
But I've been teaching it to men. And
It's interesting, when you don't speak a language, you're much more in tune with that because that's all you've got.
that's it.
And by the way, people love it, and women probably love it because, I mean, they really feel like you're listening. You're not talking back. You're just like, finally, somebody's just going to listen to what I have to say. It's true. I mean, everybody loves an audience. You know, if you want to have a lot of friends, I mean, the art of listening is something we've lost. I mean, you know, I much prefer to just sit and listen to somebody. I have a lot of questions like you're asking me, but, you know, generally speaking, I find it much more interesting to listen than to speak.
Same. I'm the same way.
Yeah.
I know. And it's funny, I get around guys like you and other guys that want to do the same thing. And so the conversation sometimes
like
can
really
be
quiet.
pretty quiet.
Yeah,
and
it's
dull.
like, who's gonna
start talking
to volunteer, you know? I mean, I'm definitely down to shake things up, for sure. You know, if things are getting boring, I'll just jump in. But I just think, you know, you learn more from what other people tell you.
Totally. I completely agree with you. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what have you done with Warner Brothers, Fox, and other studios?
So a couple of projects, let's see. I wrote a really cool movie. It didn't get made for Warner Brothers called Mindcatcher.
Okay.
Mindcatcher was a best-selling, New York Times best-selling book. And they bought it for me to adapt. It was written by this gentleman, John Darton, who does a lot of these sci-fi thrillers. The concept there was interesting. I mean, I think I was, you know, I wasn't sure it was the right project for me specifically to write. This thing I was going to direct. The concept was about a little boy gets injured with a piton, like from rock climbing, in his skull. Long story short, it really had to do with, does the soul exist? And this neurosurgeon does this surgery, and then this kid's mind ends up somehow, the kid dies, but his mind ends up traveling into what we would basically consider the World Wide Web now. And he starts communicating with his father, and his father's trying to figure out how to get to him. So it has to do with like, where is the soul? Does the soul exist? And it explores that. It was interesting. It was kind of like, you know, Ghost or any of these movies where there's like, you know, you're getting that connection, but a little bit more of a sci-fi thriller. It didn't get made, but it was an interesting project. I wrote that for Warner's. I have a project now about Playboy in the 70s, based on a true story, and it's about a photo editor who, inspired by its true story, I should say, not based, but inspired. And she basically found all the centerfolds for half. She became, it's basically like Devil Wears Prada.
Yeah.
But like, imagine if instead of, what's her name, Meryl Streep being your boss from, you know, it's Hugh Hefner and all the crazy stuff that she went through. So for example, you know, the first episodes is like Hef coming to LA from New York, and this young secretary is like in charge of like going to look at houses and finds the Playboy Mansion, you know, that kind of stuff. Okay. So it's super fun, and I worked with all these different photographers that worked with her, and she became she was the photo editor of Playboy. And so that's a project that I have in development I'm really excited about. We came very close to getting that green-lit, and hopefully that'll happen soon.
Okay. I just had a gentleman on the show earlier that helped take Playboy public.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Funny that we're talking
That was a
about
real wild. That actually, I'm a little familiar with that. I think that went public through, was it through a SPAC? I can't remember.
So.
But yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean, I remember when that went public. Yeah, it's wild. And so yeah, I mean, sometimes I'll run into people that were this takes place during the 70s and 80s. This show, so I'll run into like friends that either know an old centerfold or whatever, and I'll have these conversations, and it's wild because like I know a lot of these things, these details, and it's like, but it's really these are the people that experienced it. What a wild and cool time to be part of. Playboy back then was a very different experience,
absolutely.
than it is how we look at those things now. I mean,
Yeah.
it was Michael Crichton, some of the best writers we know, used to write for Playboy, which is totally crazy and cool. But yeah, so that's another project that's called Naked. So hopefully I'll know more about that in the next 4 or 5 months. I have a few things in the hopper, like that. I also done shows for Lionsgate, different kinds of things, TV, done commercials for companies like Match.com and all kinds of fun stuff like that.
That's
So
funny.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so all kinds of different things. And my hands are always in, I like to do all kinds of stuff from kids movies to dramatic, but my bread and butter is definitely drama. That's what, as a director, that's really what speaks to me. I can write anything, but
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. It's funny you're talking about directing. Also earlier on the show, I had a woman who's an actress here in town, and she just got accepted to NYU,
Oh, cool.
UCLA for film directing,
cool.
and so she's headed down that path too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's I feel like, filmmaking, there's so many tools now at your fingertips in terms of school. Like if you're going to go to film school, I feel like you're going because you're really trying to find allies. It's all about, they say who you know. It's not really that, but you just need to really, your team, I think it's really special, when you get into the real world, nobody's got time to, you got to make money. So
Yeah.
it's like, in film, you can make your labor of love in film school because, everyone's there for the same reason. You're just working on these projects. Real world is very hard to do anything other than like how much do we have to make this.
Yep.
So it's a good place to really hone your craft, and it's cool.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Enjoyable.
I've never really sat down with anyone and had a deeper discussion about film like this.
Oh,
it's,
cool.
It's really cool to hear your perspective on it.
Yeah.
And feel your passion about it.
Yeah.
Like why it's so important to you.
I mean, it's kind of like, I don't know, what else I would do. I mean, storytelling is like my passion. I think connecting, the truth is that people tell stories to connect, to share.
Yep.
I think that's why we do it. I think that, it's just a form of, I can tell you there's nothing cooler, whether it's a script you wrote or it's a movie you made, than when somebody that you have never met in your life, and they come up to you and they look at you like they know you. And they know you because you spoke to them in a way about something that you created and it resonated with them. That is I don't know how to describe that. I don't get that feeling from comedy because I think I'm just a little too serious for it, but I definitely get it from drama. I think it's because on that more of a emotional level, it's much more true and pure. Comedy is like, oh, I thought that was so funny, but like funny doesn't hit you the same. When someone says to you, like, I couldn't stop thinking about that because I thought about fill in the blank in their life. That thing, when people give you that and you can share that with people, that's addicting. And I think that's the thing that in life that I really look for is like those kinds of connections. And I think about the things that influenced me growing up. And it's kind of something that kind of drives me. Once you feel that feeling, it's hard to not want to keep doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And then at the same time, when you do something, and I don't know how people do this, but I guess money speaks to it. You do something that you're not proud of, and people see it. and you know it's not great, you know it's not true, but you know you got paid a lot, so I guess that's good. But man, I just have a hard time if people thought I was a hack or like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
in life and anything, it's like, you know, some people just don't care, and I totally respect that, but I have a hard time with that. The integrity, I guess, the integrity of what you're doing.
Yep.
It's just too personal. I think one of the challenges in the creative, whatever you're doing is balancing the business with the creative, because you have to be a great businessman to be successful.
Yes.
And you know, there's a little bit of like, you do a little of that for a little of that. You know, you're making you know, a lot of filmmakers will say, this is the, you know, this part is for the, you know, for the studio, and this part's for me.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Totally.
And I think it's always a little bit of the compromise. You know, making movies is about compromise. It's just about making the right compromises. You know, because they're going to be made. You never, if there's no compromises, the movie ends up poorly, like Matrix 2 or 3. Because that's where there's no. I mean, look at the first one. The first one's great because they were completely like under the gun. They didn't know they had to like be vetted after they made the first one. It was like, you guys are geniuses. Go do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Well, then what happens?
Yeah. That's a problem, man.
Yeah. Anyway, rambling on.
But no, I think you have some really valid points there, because I feel the same way about the work that I do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the guys that come and work with me, I would never coach them on something that I didn't truly believe in and I didn't feel was true,
Right.
that I have done and accomplished myself. So I don't go beyond the bounds of what I know and what I've perfected myself. That's true to me.
Right.
So yeah, I can totally understand that.
Yeah,
It's
so
like
you
sometimes
can't-
you got to make money too.
Right. But when you're, I mean, if you know, if it's something that you haven't done and you're telling so, it's like, it doesn't feel true. And
Yeah,
they're going to know
exactly.
that, and you're going to feel it too.
Yeah, and it's no different in film, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm right there with you on that one.
I mean, sometimes you can like, you'll glean stuff from like other experiences that your friends have had, and you can say, well, my friend experienced this, so this might be something to consider. And that can come off as true, but generally speaking, our own life experiences are the things that we work from.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I
100%.
think they're pure and honest and tell the best stories. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So what's next?
Well, for me, like being a dad right now is pretty cool.
Yeah,
you know, I
congratulations.
love being a dad of a little girl, and it's super fun. I'm really excited to really create some amazing stories that she's gonna grow up watching.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's
So
cool.
like that movie about garden gnomes, for example, like she'll see that, but that got changed a lot in the post-production process from what I think it was originally intended to be. But I'm going to be doing, you know, I'm going to be writing a lot of and directing some kids movies, I think, that I, you know, when she's a little older, that I think would be really exciting for her. Doing this historical drama in Europe, that's going to be really, really special. And that's really what's next on my plate.
Because you're
And,
getting ready to leave to go work on that, right?
That's right. Yeah. I mean, that's going to be, I mean, you know, we're still like 6 to 7 months out on that, but that goes by really quick.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So
6 months is like a month these
it's like a
days.
month these days. But yeah, that's going to be a really special project. And that's like the next big thing, you know. It's funny, is, you know, as soon as you finish something, you're already moving on to your next thing. But this thing is like, right now I'm just, you know, getting ready for that. You know, what will come after that will come. But yeah, I'm really dialed in on making sure that this is kind of a big deal for me, this project. It's probably the most important thing I've ever done.
Okay.
And so
Now, is this your personal project for a studio?
it's going to be for a studio.
Okay.
And all that stuff is being figured out now.
Okay.
So yeah, so
This is something we probably can't dig too much on.
I can't talk about it.
Okay.
But maybe we'll do a follow-up after.
Yeah,
absolutely. After it's more in the know, or it's like we're getting a lot closer with the in post-production. But yeah, it's going to be great.
Okay.
It's going to be something that is, it's going to be very special. I'm just excited.
And this is the 16th century
16th century historical drama.
drama.
Yeah,
Okay.
true
Okay.
story.
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff I do is based on true story.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What freedom do you have to talk about this? Any or a little bit? Or?
Not much,
much?
man.
Okay.
I really can't talk much about it.
Okay.
You know, in my world, like these kinds of things, like, yeah, I'm not really allowed to say much about it. So
Fair enough. Fair enough.
yeah.
That's good.
There will be a time. There will be a time.
Yeah. It's no different than some of the guys that I have on here from military.
Yeah.
There's some things that
Oh, I bet. Right.
they just can't talk about. And
Yeah.
so,
I mean, it's totally respectful. It's like, yeah, I mean,
it is what it is.
maybe I should just say it's about the military, and then nobody will ask me questions about
exactly.
it. But yeah. Unfortunately, in my world, like, you know, scripts are Xeroxed in 5 different colors. There's, you know, all those kinds of weird copyrights, and it's just like the way things come out in the world now is so fast that, you know, the second you talk about anything, you're hearing about it the next day. So
Yeah.
it's just one of those things. Yeah. But when it's closer, I'm happy to get into it.
Yeah. We'll do another one and talk about that. That'll be
Yeah,
amazing.
I mean, there's lots of other stuff to talk about. That specific thing is, I can't.
Okay, that's cool. Anything else that might be coming out that you can talk about, or that,
Thinking most of the projects that I have that, you know, are coming, like, there aren't really things I can talk about yet because
Gotcha.
they're kind of in that zone. But as I mean, you know, I've got some really interesting projects that you know, I can talk vaguely about. Like,
Okay.
I've got a really interesting show about where it's like you get to experience being it's kind of like if you could be a hero and a villain at the same time on a TV show. This
interesting?
would be very cool. And yeah, that's something that's finished, and we're just getting that all together now. Trying to think of what else I've got in the cooker. I got some really fun animated projects, but you know, here's a fun thing to talk about, just about projects that you did that someone else then, like, here's the reason why, like, you don't talk about. So, like, there's this movie Migration that's been out. I don't know if you've seen this, but there's ducks. It's like this big big animated movie.
Okay.
I literally wrote this movie 12, 14 years ago.
Okay.
It went to the same people and, you know, around town, and then someone sees it, and then they just go and they change a few things, and they go write a different movie that's very similar to what you wrote. So it's like, yeah. So I mean, it's just like, I got like 20 emails from friends like, hey, is that your movie out in theaters? Because everyone, you know, around town knows you wrote the script. It's like, no, man, I got completely copied. And this happens all the time. So yeah, this one was about, I read in this movie, it was about a family of birds that go south for the winter, like a family vacation.
Yeah,
It's like a family migration.
Yeah.
Literally, that was what. Well, the movie's called Migration. It's about a family of ducks that go south for the winter. And it's like literally like so it's like you have to be super careful. It's your livelihood.
Yeah.
You know, ideas in my world are everything. So it's just, you have to be very protective of them.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
You know, but yeah. So anyway, here nor there.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we don't want to put anything out. That's for sure.
But it's just the example of, like, you know, it's just like I shake my head at that kind of stuff. It's like, oh well.
I believe it happens. I totally believe it.
I mean, it happens a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, me playing the violin. I mean, there could be an orchestra. I mean, it's you know, it happens to everybody in all kinds of you know, parts of any industry.
Yep. Yeah. Definitely.
So I was curious. So, you know, with what do you feel like is, you know, do you find that a lot of your clients have creative pursuits, or are they mostly what do you find seems to be the case with them?
So some of them do.
Mm-hmm.
Some of I have a few that are voice actors.
Oh, okay.
They get stuck a lot in their mental process about not being good enough.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So working on a lot of mindset, a lot of self-esteem stuff. Mostly I worked with guys that are in the tech industry,
Uh-huh.
engineers. I've worked with some heart surgeons, some fighter pilots,
Yeah, some different, all different
just
kinds.
a lot of different folks, but a lot of guys come from the tech industry to work with me.
And their symptom, what's their main symptom that you find?
A lot of it is self-esteem.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, a lot of it's they're not really plugged into their masculine.
Yeah.
A lot of them grown up fatherless. That's why I said,
Oh, interesting.
fathers are so important.
Yeah. I mean, I say this all the time to my wife. I always feel like, man, if only I had a mentor,
Right?
I've never really had a mentor. My dad's not around anymore, which is a total bummer because we were so close. And I don't really feel like, that mentorship wasn't something that I ever experienced. And I think part of it's because like I had a success early. And so people looked to me and I didn't really get anybody else to help me.
Yeah.
I was helping other people. And I was like, wait, shit, no, I'm struggling a little bit through, late 20s. I could use somebody,
Yeah, absolutely.
But anyway, I also feel like, as men, we don't really, I feel like there needs to be more masculine men's groups. I've gone to a few of these things where they have these groups of men, they're like all wrestling and all this stuff. And it's like, I'm like, okay, I get it. I understand that. But like, I'm a little bit more cerebral with what I need.
Yeah.
Like, I want to get out of my body, but at the same time, it's, I want someone who's more a little bit, we can just have discussion.
Yep.
It's hard to find that.
It is.
As you get older, you're taken away by your kids, your family. And it's like we don't really spend time kind of sharing and connecting as men. That's the real part.
I was reading about this psychologist. I can't remember his name. It was like during the late 60s, early 70s. And he was always talking about the deep masculine. And he was talking about how this was almost like on a tribal primal level, how the men of the community would get together and share these like deep emotional issues going on with them so that they as a whole could be stronger and connect at a deeper level. So I thought that was really interesting that...
I think that's very true.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Totally true.
I went to this men's group and there was a lot of stuff that I didn't really appeal to me about it. I could feel like a little bit of it didn't feel authentic in some ways, and some of it felt a little culty. It was like a little bit,
There's a lot of that, unfortunately.
But there was a moment that happened, and I actually might include it in this movie I'm doing in a different way. But it was this incredible moment, and what it was there was these two brothers, and some sort of terrible thing had happened between them. They had some sort of pain, something bad had recently happened. And this guy just started to cry, okay? It's a group of like 60 men, okay, in a big circle. And his brother went to him and put his arms around him, and then he started to cry. And then slowly, other people from this big group came around and started putting their hands in, just touching or whatever. And then they kind of grew until it was like this big like nest of like men like linked together, like touching each other. And these two guys were just screaming, and everyone else was just holding them, holding the space physically, like for them to release it and kind of absorbing it.
Yep.
It was unbelievable because you also were feeling your own emotion,
Yep.
And I really was like, wow, okay, that's some primal, it's kind of like that deep masculine thing. I'm describing it in a physical way, but it will stay with me forever experiencing that.
So I
Put me out of my comfort zone for sure.
I do a lot of that kind of work.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really powerful.
It is.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And as men, we hold a lot of grief outside of us. And we never have permission to let it out until it just boils over.
I think especially nowadays, we don't because, we've kind of been neutered, I mean, we're neutered in the ways that we use technology and we're connected to these things. the way that we're told, like, we have to be so careful with women,
Yeah.
and respectful, which I'm not saying isn't the right way, but everything is so mind your P's and Q's
Yeah.
that we're just like, we're always on the defensive. We're never really releasing anything. We're always just like,
Yeah.
what can I not do wrong to not be sued or to be? It's like literally like, I can't even tell you like how many times like when I'm going to do a project or whatever, and I'm just thinking, like, could anyone like sue me from my past? Like,
Yeah.
there's something that someone's gonna like what if I do something, because I see like these directors who like posted something on Twitter like 15 years ago and then get fired from like their big tentpole movie because they have this one post that somebody found that like is inappropriate, sort of, if you look at it through today's glasses, but not through where it was.
Yeah.
So I'm like, God, it's like all these things you have to be, as those guys, I think we're always kind of looking over our shoulder that way. So repression, I think, is big.
Yes. Yeah. It is very, very big. We love to shove it down and compartmentalize it, keep it there until it just boils over. And
I also think that part of that comes from or just our experience of viewing things. Like when we look on our phone and we see something that's funny, you don't really laugh out loud. You just kind of look at it
and we're like,
and kind of like, huh. So like we're kind of like this, we go through our lives kind of repressing on a like micro level constantly.
Yep.
So that might have something to do with it. Just the conditioning of like, these little moments of sadness, we're just kind of like absorbing it. But yeah, that's cool that you do that because, we need more of that, releasing that.
Yes. It's super important.
Breathing is good for that.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Good breath work.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So I have one more question
Yeah.
for you.
Curious.
I'm curious of your opinion
Okay.
of, with your grandmother.
Yeah.
She went through.
Uh-huh.
Now this is a little politically charged.
Okay, yeah, give it to me.
But I wanna get your opinion.
I may not have a knowledgeable answer on it, but I'll do my best.
That's fine. What do you think? What is your opinion with what's going on in Israel and Palestine right now?
Well, for me, I used to go, so just as context, living in New York, there was a place called B&H Photo,
Love it.
okay?
Love B&H.
Okay, well, if you're a Jew, okay, Jewish guy, I'm Jewish, you go in there, these guys look at you like you're like below a Jew because you're a Jew that's not a very seriously practicing Jew. They look at you like, what a shame. So it's like, I understand the zealotry that can happen, with some parts of Zionism or, and this is just a broader discussion.
Totally.
But, I feel like anybody that's a zealot in any way, and I'm not saying Hasidic Jews are zealots, I'm just saying that in generally speaking, like anyone that takes too extreme of a position, it doesn't see the humanity, they're probably, they're not thinking with their hearts, they're thinking with their heads. And, it's just a terrible situation on all sides there.
Totally.
I mean, there is nobody that's right or wrong. I will definitely say that the thing that shocked me from what happened over there is like, just in a vacuum, people get gunned down or kidnapped at some festival and they're tortured. And it's like, there's no excuse for that. I don't care who did what or what did what. It's just like, look at that. It's terrible.
It is.
It's not great what Israel did in response either. I think that the larger political thing is that, we have a major, this area, and I'm not somebody that I purposefully don't try to get too into the weeds of this because I think that's, my heart kind of tells me where things are. It's bad all around.
Yeah.
But at when people's lives, and this is just a general thing in the Middle East, when people's lives aren't worth more than tying a bomb to their body and walking into a place that they don't think they're worth more than anything than that, this is just going to continue to happen. People are going to continue on both sides to do this stuff until like the lives of people are valued by the people that are upset. They're just going around, Palestinians, they're what do they have to look for? Nothing, right?
Yeah.
And so, but I don't blame the Jews for any of that. I blame the rest of the Middle East. Who the hell else is helping all these people? They leave them there to like, nobody's like, I don't see Egypt or these other countries like jumping in like to help.
Yeah.
The reason is because, they really, nobody, I mean, they've said it for years, but Israel, they look as an occupying the land, and they want them out of there. And I think it's just really hard. It's a hard, tenuous situation on both sides. I don't think anybody's right. I just think it's a terrible situation. And, until the quality of life is better for all around, where the Palestinians aren't living in slums and like live this way.
Yeah.
That takes generations, and it takes a lot of work. And frankly, I don't think, I think that in the Middle East, they're just been sadly used as pawns to like create this constant problem. Nobody's helping them.
Yep.
And it's sad to see Israel attacking them. But at the same time, I feel like what the real issue isn't even, it's a bigger issue is, the people funding all this stuff. There's bigger parties at play. And they're just, all these people are just, being,
Yeah.
Anyway. So my response to that is, it'd be the same thing when I look at like any sort of, it's just a terrible situation all around. How do you solve the situation? There was this great, I forget his name, but he's one of these guys who goes into, tenuous situations where there's major differences between two sides and kind of negotiates between these. He's a negotiator.
Okay.
Diffusing the situation, and there's a whole language to it. Like I feel this way when you do this, and then back and forth, and it's actually applicable to relationships and all kinds of stuff. But I feel like they need to like get together and both admit that they're both wrong and figure it out. But they've been trying. The problem is that when religion gets into things, it no longer makes any sense. And that's what I mean about the zealotry. I mean, I look through Europe. I mean, look at the horrible things in the last 500 years that people have done. I mean, it is unbelievable. Yeah. Unbelievable, And, I think religion is just a way to, back then it was just, it's still today. I mean, religion is a way to control people. It was the way, back then it really was a way to like, they needed the people not to like go, it wasn't easy to have jurisdiction. So they needed rules, the Jews, I mean, I'll say, I'm Jewish, so I'll say it, but like, being kosher, all these kinds of things, like don't eat, it's against God's, to not eat pork with, milk or whatever, these kinds of ideas. Well, that wasn't because like God deemed it. It was because like people were probably getting really sick, and they needed a way to get people to do what they want, that they needed them to do in order to not get sick. Okay. So, they made these things the religious law. I think that religion probably started more in those, if that's just my suspicion, and I think now we've kind of we read things a little too closely in the books and things, I mean, we did that with the Constitution too. I mean, I was incredible what these constitutional lawyers do. It blows my mind how they take a passage and then try to apply it to some ridiculous conglomerate that's trying to, monopolize an industry. And I'm like, that's just not correct.
Yep.
Anyway, so yeah, I don't know. That's my long-winded way of just saying it's a terrible situation. Not taking a side, but I do think that anyone that's too extreme, doing, is probably not right. They need to kind of come in the middle and figure this situation out.
Yeah, I would agree, and I think there's a lot of people that are of your thinking as well.
Yeah.
Hey, how can we work this out?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not here to point fingers on anything at this point. I mean, damage is damage. The one thing I will say though is I really was shocked that after what happened that there wasn't more of an outcry against that initial massacre. Because I understand that people have responses, but like I look at the initial event and I'm like, how there was such a backlash almost immediately that about the Palestinians and the attacks there, and I was like, I agree with what's happening is terrible, but like, can we just hold up for a second and just acknowledge the fact that, that they didn't start this specific episode. Somebody came in and just like, what impetus was there for that? There wasn't anything that had just happened. It was like, I mean, there's been long-standing problems, but man, I was just really shocked at the callousness, I think, of people to just sort of go into the woke moment of that, And I mean, we can all be woke. And it has a negative connotation, but I was just, wow, like, I was just really surprised at how quickly things moved. And I'll say this about my grandmother. She would look at me and she would say, it'll happen again. That's what she saw the world as a beautiful place, but she just always, whatever it is that she saw in those camps, she, like a dormant kind of evil.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
She saw the most evil things in man. Like, she saw that. And in her eyes, I'll never forget, like, she never left her that could happen. They say, like, never again and all that. My grandmother was like, oh, it's here. She was, and she was not a cynical person. But she, which I think she saw something in when you see that in man, and that man is in like,
Mankind,
mankind.
Yeah.
You see what people are capable of doing.
Yeah.
I don't think that ever leaves you. And, and I think she just always believed that, that existed. And she would tell me, that's why when I made that movie, she was really proud of that movie. But she also told me, she said that, it's beautiful, but it's not all, true. In the sense that, the brutality and these things that exist. And because the movie does take, that specific short film is beautiful and sad, but the barbarism or the things that linger in man, I mean, that was like, she told me that, I was like, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
And it was interesting. I think that, things like that are happening, you're watching what the Israelis are doing, you're watching the Palestinians. It's just, yeah, it exists. It exists in all of us,
It does. And I talk about this in the spectrum that we as men live on. We have the capability to be that dark as men. Women don't necessarily have that in them. They do, but men take it just one notch further because of the protector side of us.
Yeah, I think there's something in the reptilian brain that triggers that protector nature. Women, they do something they have this, this nurture, and it's a part of like having a child.
Yeah.
Women can be, when, it's different. Men, it's more of a physical aggression. It's like, that's where our expression comes. You watch that with like how boys and girls, are mean to each other. Like when girls are the girls versus boys to boys. I mean, you see it,
And just even how like we play
Right.
as kids.
Right.
How boys play differently than
100%. Yeah, it's a totally different thing. So I think there is truth to that. I think that, in the camps, I mean, like there were women guards, but you don't hear much about that part of it,
And from your grandmother's experience, it sounds like they were kind of okay.
Well, let's be, we were borrowing a very specific instance, but
Totally.
But I think she found like one or two maybe that were nice, but
Okay.
I don't know. I can't speak to that about, I'm sure in all these places there was always a good soul or two, but they are working in concentration camps.
Yep.
So yeah, I don't know, but I will say that like I'll never forget that realistic. She never forgot like the kinds, and she would see the people that were, she saw the worst of man in those camps, and I think that in life when you see those kinds of things, I mean we see like microcosms of that, like people treating each other cruelly, and you're like, why is that?
Yep.
It's just part of the human condition. I don't think there's anything wrong with admitting that there is a part of, us that is pretty
Dark.
and animalistic and beastly,
Yeah. Yep.
And I think the more that we probably acknowledge that, and
So we need to access it.
yeah, I mean, to acknowledge it, or that we're not afraid to speak against it.
Yeah.
I feel like, when today, we're also afraid. There's so much fear.
Yep.
Fear is everywhere. Fear of everything, of saying the wrong thing. It frustrates me because people aren't really true. They're not being honest. Everybody is not, it's not even honest. It's just that people can't, I don't know, like when you're when you're always living in fear of whether you're hurting someone's feelings or I always, then you're not going to do anything. It creates apathy.
Yeah.
A lack, there's nothing worse than that, but I think that's really true. I think we're really indifferent and apathetic in a lot of ways. People are hypersensitive and apathetic because you get so sick of everything being so that you're just like, well, I don't care anymore.
Yeah. And what kind of life is that, right?
Yeah.
We should be out expressing ourselves. All the
Yeah.
time.
But I think of men, I think that's a big part of it. I think that, we live in fear of nowadays, I think of, self-respect, but, or the things that we're afraid of in our own lives, but also just doing something wrong. I feel that all the time.
Yeah.
But it kind of you kind of go one way or the other with that. You either decide, I'm going to really lean into it and just shake the tree, which is the way I like to go. I mean, I'll have an opinion and it's I just want to see how do you react to that opinion,
Exactly.
But I think that's, it makes for good conversation.
It does. Definitely.
You have to be able to not take things too seriously and be able and open and comfortable that people have different thoughts than you do.
Yep.
I think it was, Steve Jobs used to talk about fonts. Do you ever know about this story with fonts?
I don't. But
He used to say, and I'm going to get this wrong, but his big thing with these Apple fonts was that he wanted people to think out of the box. It was more meant to allow people to, when all these fonts that he created, because they're like, why do we have all these fonts and all this stuff that remember?
Were they like the wingdings?
Yeah, all that weird stuff that he used to do. And it had to do, I think, with this idea of these, he just thought it was a way of getting people out of thinking out of their normal guideways. That there's all these different, ways to look at things. And I thought it was so interesting he was so gung-ho about these fonts. He understood that there was something subconscious about just the idea of, opening ourselves up to other cultures or other things, getting out of that wind tunnel. That's just the way we think. I think we just, nowadays, the algorithm figures out where your head is at, feeds you the same thing over and over. And the echo chamber is just the same thing over and over. In my world, that is the biggest danger creatively. Because you will be creating derivative of what everyone else is doing, and then you will never sell or do anything interesting. No. You have to search hard life experience, but also just, when they zig, you zag. It's movies take 3 years. You're 3.5 years is basically from concept, unless you're Steven Spielberg, 6 to 7 months to get a script that's worthy of being read. I don't care what anyone says. If they write a movie in 2 months, don't read it.
Yeah.
And then you've got to package it, finance it, and fast track that's 3 or 4 months. You got to go shoot it. That's another, 4 months, 5 months, and then you got to get distribution. All that. It's another 6 months marketing. So you're a 2.5 to 3 year process, and and your movie has to exist in that timeline and be fresh when it comes out.
Yeah.
So you have to be thinking way in advance. So if you're in the same boat as everyone else, thinking about the same stuff,
Good luck.
Good luck.
Being fed the same kind of
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah. Other than these Hallmark movies, which they do like next to it takes 10 minutes to make those things.
Yeah.
And they're just, that's the point, because they want to get them out so quick, because it's about a story that's, happening now.
Yeah.
It's like, it takes a minute, So, yeah.
Good stuff, man.
Yeah.
I appreciate you coming in and
Yeah.
doing this. It's such a unique perspective on things, and
I'm interested to learn more about what you do with your clients. It sounds like a real interesting endeavor.
yeah. Well, we can talk a little bit later about that.
Mhm.
But yeah, definitely. Well, thanks for coming in, man.
Yeah.
This has been
I appreciate
cool.
it. Yeah.
Awesome.
All right, cool.